Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of the Cards Court. We are back. It's the number one weekly Ball State basketball show in the world. I'm your host, Griffin Leonard. Joining me this week as my new full-time co-host, Sam Neiger. Welcome back to the show, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Griffin. This is going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it.
And then joining us later on the show will be Ball State women's basketball head coach Brady Sallee. We're kicking things off with a bang. And with that, the court is now in session. Sam, you were on the first episode when we had Lewis on back in November, was it? And now you're back. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Griffin. A great time of year for basketball, especially now that Maction's kicking into high gear, and we're very excited to have Brady Sallee on today to represent the women's team well.
Yeah, Maction's always a good time, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. Let's quickly walk us through what happened while we were all on break. I know most of you probably were keeping up with the team in some regard, but the Ball State men's basketball team had 4 contests over the break, and unfortunately they didn't go very well. They lost a close one to Indiana State at the Indy Classic out at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, then took a trip out to Minnesota, got beat by the Big Ten team, the Golden Gophers, and then started off MAC play with a road loss to Kent State and then a home match against Central Michigan that it looked like they had a shot to win, and we'll talk about that a little later, but they ended up getting tagged with the loss in that one. The women's team, however, on the flip side, they went undefeated over the break. They went out to Tampa, Florida right before Christmas and took on Pitt and Georgia. Got 2 big wins there against Power 5 teams. Took on and handled pretty easily the NAIA Oakland City. And then to start MAC play, won at Western Michigan. And then on Saturday, a big win in overtime against the University of Akron. Sam, the Ball State men's basketball team had a solid non-conference schedule, but has hit a roadblock here in the last 4 or so games. What has gone wrong?
What has gone wrong is that the team has kind of lost its ability to score with a lot of proficiency. I mean, we've got Bashir Jihad, they have Jalen Anderson. That's a 1-2 punch that should combine for a pretty hefty amount of points per game, but just little mistakes there, here and there. I feel like the depth has kind of gone off a little bit for the Cardinals. And if you talk to Michael Lewis, you listen to what he says after his games and his post-game press conferences. He says, the team has a learning problem. It's kind of a learning curve that the team has hit now that MAC play has started. It's such a young team, such an inexperienced team. The chemistry might not all be there yet, so they are kind of hitting a learning curve right now. If you look down the roster, there's a ton of individual talent on this team. A lot of young talent, but there is talent there. And for Ball State, it's just about putting the pieces in place at the right time, which this team has the ability to do. And if they can combine all that individual talent into a team effort and start putting up more points on the board, this is a team that still has so much season ahead of them, they can right the ship.
Yeah, well, when you look at the losing streak, there's 4 games there. 3 of them are difficult to assess because of the quality of the opponent. You have Indiana State, a very good mid-major. You have Minnesota. It's always tough to win on the road against Power 5 teams.
Absolutely.
And then Kent State was just in the NCAA tournament.
True.
So I kind of gave them a pass on those 3 games, but Central Michigan was definitely a game where I thought that wasn't going to be too much of an issue, and we were both there firsthand. There were some significant issues on that team, and it starts with the depth. You were talking about it. You look at the box score for Ball State. Davion Bailey, 37 of the 40 minutes. Bashir Jihad, 36. Jalen Anderson, 39. Mickey Pearson, 39. You got 17 bench minutes total between Ben Hendricks and Trent Middleton Jr. Mike Cabell very briefly came into the game, but it's just been a problem of not having enough guys to give your stars rest, because you're right, they can account for a lot of points, but if they get tired, some of these bigger and better teams are just going to run all over you.
And you go down that list, and like you said, there is a lot of talent in that starting lineup, but only 8 guys saw the floor in that entire game, and the fact that you are getting such limited minutes out of guys like Ben Hendricks, who has had his best season of his career up to this point. He didn't have a whole lot of production that added to the scoring. Makai Bell barely played at all. Trent Middleton Jr., who's a workhorse, but He really didn't contribute to the scoring much at all. I think my attention turns towards some of these freshmen. We've got to see more production out of Zane Dowdy. I think Mason Jones, although he is a starter, has got to start putting up more points on the board. And I'd love to see Makai Bell get more minutes. I'd love to see Urisa Zagorzak get a couple of minutes as well, because he is shooting really well from the floor when he gets on the floor. It's just that Ball State has dug themselves these really deep holes as of late that we haven't really been afforded to see what kind of talent Ball State does have on the bench. So if they can kind of dip into that bench a little bit more, see if they can't get more production, more minutes out of the bench, I think that could be the missing piece right now for the Cardinals team, because it seems there's a lot of guys on really level playing field right now.
Well, the Ball State Cardinals have the opportunity to kind of right the ship here, but they got a couple of tough non-conference games coming up. We'll talk more about those later on the show. Let's quickly turn our attention before we hit this break to the Ball State women's basketball team. They've been hot. They've been very, very good. 12-2 now, 2-0 in the MAC. And this game against Akron kind of showed how crazy MACtion can be. You look at the records, and you don't think it's going to be much of a game, but Akron played the Ball State Cardinals very hard, and it took an extra 5 minutes for Ball State to get it done, mainly off the efforts of Allie Becky and Madeline Bischoff, whose names we've called all season.
Well, let's be honest. Every time Ball State, the women's basketball team, lines up against a MAC opponent, they're going to have a target on their back, and they have earned the right to have that target on their back. It was a question of when this first MAC challenge was going to appear, and it appeared in Akron, and for Ball State fans, they should feel very optimistic coming out of that game. Yes, maybe you don't expect Akron to give the Cardinals as much of a run for their money as they did, but Akron played a very good game, took them to overtime, as you said, but Ball State's ability to fight through that adversity is one of the biggest takeaways that you could have from an early MAC game like this. This is a team that has the ability to beat each and every team in the Mid-American Conference. Now, obviously, an undefeated season in the MAC is really tough to do, but for Ball State, the position that they're in right now, the way they're playing against MAC opponents, the effort that they're putting out there week in and week out has been huge, and I really don't expect it to change at all. This is a team that's heading in the right direction right now.
Yeah, the Ball State women's basketball team's on a 6-game win streak. Their only 2 losses are to UConn and Notre Dame. And I don't know, if you're Brady Sallee, I'm feeling pretty good. And after this break, I'm excited to talk to him and figure out what he wants or what he thinks about how the season's been going. And we'll just do just that. I'll talk to you more, Sam, later on the show. After the break, folks, we're going to talk to Ball State men's basketball coach Brady Sallee about how the season's been going and what he expects as the season dwindles down. You're listening to the Cards Court here on the SL Digital Radio Network, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Victory Honda of Muncie. We're not just another car dealership, and here's why. We stand behind every car we sell and are dedicated to helping our customers save time and money. All our pre-owned cars undergo a rigorous 182-point inspection and come with a 90-day warranty to ensure that you're getting a Victory quality vehicle. Plus, you'll get 2 years of complimentary oil changes and tire rotations. We're part of a top 15 dealership group and have an enormous selection of vehicles with access to inventory at over 45 locations. You always get more for your trade and the best possible rates with us. We have an excellent relationship with hundreds of lenders. Our exclusive Car Doc maintenance and membership program will help you save hundreds of dollars in the process of maintaining your vehicle. Lastly, our state-of-the-art body shop and certified technicians perform high-quality repairs and paintwork on most vehicle makes and models. Victory Honda of Muncie. We're not just another car dealership.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. I'm the host, Griffin Leonard, here now with our guest for the afternoon, Coach Brady Sallee of the women's basketball team. Thank you so much, Coach, for taking the time to be on the show today.
Yeah, excited to be here. I've heard some good things about this show so far, so happy to be on it.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And, Coach, I guess we'll start with this. So let's say we're talking to October Coach Brady right here. Somebody tells you that to this point in the season, your only 2 losses are to Notre Dame and UConn. You guys have beat everybody else along the way. What would October Brady think about that statement?
I'd have probably said you're nuts. I think looking back on the summer leading in, the decision to challenge our team with the schedule that we did, it was meant to be exactly that. Without knowing, how Nyla Hampton was going to fit into the fray, without knowing the steps that Anna Bahitu and Hannah Mule were going to take for us, without knowing that Maddie Bischoff was really going to elevate her game to the way she's playing right now. Really, the two kids that we felt we knew what we were going to get were Allie and Marie. They've been pretty consistent performers. So there are a lot of question marks, but I did feel like regardless of where those answers would come from, they were somewhere in our roster. So the decision to challenge ourselves and play the schedule that we did was a little bit crazy probably, but I think when you feel like you have a team like we do, you have to put yourselves in a position to possibly catch the committee's eye and show them that you really tried in terms of the way you challenge yourselves. And so for us to come out of it and be sitting here right now at 12-2 and 10-2 in the non-con so far, with some big wins in there, couldn't be more thrilled. But I tell my team all the time, this start is worth nothing if you don't do something with it.
Fast forwarding now, though, in the position that you're currently in, are you still as over the moon as October Brady would have been, or do you think that there's still a little more like could we have done more, desire to build on what you've already accomplished?
Yeah, I think in the middle of the season, there's really there's no place for, stepping back and really looking at it that way. I think you're so buried in the day-to-day and the process. You hear coaches all the time talk about process. And it really is what separates, I think, good teams, good programs from others is, there's teams and there's programs that understand the process. They kind of get their rocks off in the process, and those are the special ones. Some get bored with the process, and those are the ones that plateau and kind of fizzle out. At this time of year, it just simply becomes, how can I go 1-0 today? You get done with one, and you quickly start moving on to the next one. Because unlike non-con, like right now, every game counts the same. So, whether you beat Western Michigan on the road or whether you beat Toledo on the road, they all count the same, right? And they accumulate, right? In the non-conference, you play a game, you shake hands, one team goes one way, you go another way, and you don't see each other until possibly that time next year, maybe in the summer recruiting, you see their coaches. In conference, it's just so much more like a family feud, right? I mean, you see each other every single day. You live with the results every single day. And those teams that can really just dive into the process and worry less about the wins and losses and more about how do we continue to get better from December to January to February, and then hopefully at the Apex in March.
Well, obviously the conference schedule is such a grind, and some teams, based on their schedules, kind of have seemed to ease into it a little bit and get some of those easier games under their belt to build themselves ready for conference play. You guys just jumped straight into the fire, and it seems to have gone pretty well. Let's talk about the Suncoast Challenge specifically.
Sure.
An opportunity to be in a smaller invitational tournament, but with 2 Power 5 schools. How did that come about, and how did you get involved in it?
Yeah, whenever we're out looking for these experience tournaments, so to speak, where you're going to some nice places, you're spending some time as a team. There's a ton of them, in the Caribbean. There's some in Hawaii. There's Las Vegas. They're all over the map. Florida's a hot spot, clearly. So one of the things that, for us being in the Midwest, it's nice to get down and see some weather where you can actually go enjoy the outside, right? We didn't quite hit it perfect. It was only like mid-60s, but it sure is nice right now, as we're slipping and sliding up and down McKinley today. And
yeah, I'm sure it was better than whatever we would have had here.
So that's part of it. And then really for me, the biggest part is who are we going to play? And every year it's a little bit different. There's been some years where we've wanted to go to these and we've wanted to almost guarantee ourselves of going 1-1. Or getting at least a win in the tournament. Sometimes you play 3 games in these. This particular year, we wanted everything we could bite off. And so when we had the opportunity to play a couple Power Fives on neutral floors, we jumped at it. And listen, here's the thing. Like, these only work if you've got a coach at Georgia and a coach at Pittsburgh that's willing to play Ball State on a neutral floor. A lot of people in that situation, when the head of that tournament called and said, okay, you're going to play Ball State, would have said, nope. That doesn't make any sense for us. And I get it. It probably doesn't. But they're about getting better. And I think they realize that, honestly, win or lose against us, both those teams, it's a top 75 loss. I mean, it's not anything they won't see in their league over and over and over. So a lot of respect for Coach Verdi and Coach Abrahamson at Georgia and at Pittsburgh. So and then, the other part that's important for me is in these tournaments is who's running it, and are you going to get like real officials. There's some of these jokers that run these things that they're trying to make money first and foremost, and so they're going to bring in Uncle Ed, Aunt Susie, and Grandpa Charlie, and that's going to be your officiating crew. Well, it's not fair to your players to put them in that situation that it doesn't mimic what we do all season long. You want to go down and you want to see what you're used to. We're fortunate in this league. We see good officials. Those that have come to my games may not think that I believe that, but we're fortunate. We get a lot of Big Ten crews. We get a lot of Big East crews, and we benefit from that. So when we had ACC officials down at this tournament, okay, that's important too. So you want to get your kids a great experience, but you also want to put your program in a place where they can get some meaningful games under their belt and do it in a place that you can enjoy being for a few days.
Talking about the results specifically in that tournament, you guys got the job done against Pitt by a decent margin. Mm-hmm. It's a team that you guys have a little bit more experience with. You've played them a few more times in recent history. Georgia was kind of a wild card. You guys hadn't played them in quite a number of years. In general, they haven't played a whole lot of MAC teams recently. And for Georgia, that game went down to the wire. Mm-hmm. Allie Becky with the game winner with under 3 seconds to go. What went into that final sequence from a coaching perspective, and what did you guys do besides the actual shot going in that enabled you to secure the victory in those last seconds?
Yeah, so, just quickly, just mentioning Pitt, that game, even though it was against an ACC opponent, we felt like we were the better team going in, and we had to play like it. Now, you've got some ACC players on the floor that make that difficult, but overall, it was a game that we felt like we were the better team, and, they've got a new coach this year. He's building a different culture, so understandable that, they've got a little bit of work to do, and I think he's really good. Coach Verdi is really good, and he'll get them going. So that was a good win for us, and we had a quick turnaround, having one day to prepare for Georgia, and we knew it was going to be a low-scoring, very choppy game because that's how Georgia makes everybody play. They play a really difficult matchup zone. She's done it for years and is so good at coaching it and adjusting in it. What may work in the first quarter is not in the second, so you have to have a plan A, B, C, and D. We actually executed well enough to get them out of that zone, and they went man almost the entire second half, which is almost unheard of under her. So I felt good about that. And so going into that last possession, first we had to go get a stop on the other end. We had them commit a 30-second shot clock violation coming out of a timeout, which was a huge defensive possession for us, and that allowed us to get the ball back, advance it, and really with what they were doing to Maddie Bischoff, we felt like we could use her as a decoy. They were literally face guarding her everywhere she went on the floor, so we ran her off a flare screen, had them go chase her on the wing. And then we just ran a little kind of zoom action, dribble handoff action with Marie Kiefer and Allie. And because they were face guarding Maddie to Allie's right at the top of the key, it gave Allie a little bit more room to play. Well, what I did know is how they were going to guard the handoff, which was fine, but they switched. So they put their big on Allie. And when we got that matchup, while it was happening, I felt like we're going to get a great shot. Now, it's just got to go in. So we executed tremendously. We got the matchup we wanted. And I think the big part that I saw in that was Allie could have taken a 17-footer early, but she understood the matchup she had. She got deeper in the paint, and she rose up and ended up hitting a 10 to 12-footer, which clearly is going to be a more high percentage shot. So she was very calm in that. She knew the matchup she had. She knew where she could get it and what she could do with it. Hit a huge shot to get an SEC win. Definitely a fun time.
Well, a big winner for Allie Becky. That was one of the high points of the winter break for your team. And we'll talk more about Allie and the squad after this break. You're listening to the Cards Court here on the SL Digital Radio Network, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Hi, I'm Chris Taylor, Senior Director of Digital Sports Production and Ball State SportsLink, the nation's first 4-year academic digital sports production program. It's the intersection of sports and storytelling, where we're training the next generation of digital content producers. It's truly unique because a lot of schools have sports broadcasting and sports journalism, and while we have elements of both of those, our focus is on sports media production and the behind-the-scenes work. And I think that's what separates us at Ball State, because a lot of schools will teach students to learn production or live event streaming, but we're teaching storytelling. And that is producing long-form, layered feature stories where we can humanize our student athletes and our coaches and tell the story as to why they're playing their sport at Ball State. Anyone can produce or edit things that are flashy and look good, but can you tell a story? And at Ball State, I think we really teach that, and the success is evident.
Welcome back to the Cards Court here, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. Still here with Coach Brady Sallee. Coach, it's been a while since you guys have had a homestand. You had the Black Friday home game against Notre Dame. You had the game against Oakland City on the day before New Year's Eve, but it's been a long stretch on the road, a long time away from Muncie. But you guys have still managed to perform pretty well on the road, and now coming back here with this MAC schedule, as we said earlier, it's a grind, and you're going to have a lot of home games in a short amount of time. But what have those road trips taught you this far in the season?
Yeah, honestly, when we were putting the schedule together, I knew that stretch where the beginning of December, we were at St. Louis. We're going to get on a plane the next day and fly to Storrs, Connecticut. We're going to spend a lot of time together that week. We flew back Thursday morning after that Connecticut game, had a pseudo practice on Friday, and practiced on Saturday, got back on the bus and drove to Western Kentucky. So over an 8-day stretch, we went from St. Louis to Storrs, Connecticut to Bowling Green, Kentucky. Not an easy stretch, but to win on both ends of that trip, against St. Louis and against Western Kentucky was big. And then we had a good break there for exams, and then, like we talked about, the Florida tournament, a little bit more travel. Here's what a lot of people don't count in all this travel. Our kids also traveled home and back for Christmas. So that was more travel, right? Some on planes, some by car. But so that was an added part of that. And anytime you come back from Christmas, there's going to be just a little bit of conditioning that's gone south. You're going to come back. You're going to be sore from getting back out on the floor. We had that Oakland City warm-up like we talked about, which was big for us. And then we had to go get on the road again. And that's the one thing when we put the December schedule together, you don't know what your conference schedule is going to look like starting out. So, the scheduling guides were laughing at me when they put us on the road for the first two in the league. But our kids handled it great. Had a big win up at Western Michigan, played really well, and then, had to grind one out where we didn't make a lot of shots. But, man, did we compete and show a real will to win, and went and got some big-time rebounds and to get us into overtime, and then kind of took over in overtime at Akron. But always a tough place to play for us, not the easiest trip to get to Akron. It was a good start. There's only two teams in the league that started on the road in two. It's us and Toledo, and we both took care of business. So, like I said, only good enough if you do something with it, though.
Well, and we'll talk about the Toledo game here in a little bit, but first the home games before that. Before we get there, we got Buffalo on Wednesday, Bowling Green on Saturday. After having so many games on the road, and then you did have the one home game, but it was at NAIA school. Now that you're just straight into conference schedule and you got that 2-game homestand, what are you expecting out of your group? And who maybe are you expecting to step up in those 2 games?
Yeah, I expect us to be excited to play at home. I need the students and the crowd to come out and appreciate this team, for what they've done up till now. And this has always been a really tough place to play for not just league opponents, but everybody that comes in here. And part of that is because we do get good crowds. And I know our marketing team has worked hard to put some themes on all of these games, and so we're excited about that. I think Wednesday is First Responders Night, so we get a chance to thank a lot of people that do a lot of important work around our community. But that Buffalo team is always gritty, always tough. They've got a kid that can flat out score the ball, a little guard that can really boogie, and she's going to be a tough matchup. There's no question about it. Anytime you're playing Bowling Green, it strikes a chord, right? They've been good for a number of years here, and so we're expecting nothing but high-level basketball, right? And the beauty of our team, I don't know who's going to step up, but we're not a one-trick pony. We don't have to have a certain player get a certain amount of points or dues. Like we've just got a good team that trusts each other, and we've seen Allie Becky hit big shots. We've seen Maddie Bischoff hit big shots. We've seen Marie Kiefer have those moments. We've seen Nyla Hampton absolutely go make winning plays when you had to have them. Against Akron, we pounded the ball into Annie Rauch for a couple big-time plays in overtime. We've had it across the board, and that's one of the strengths of our team, I think, is you don't really know who you're going to have to guard in those moments. But we've got some talented young ladies, and they'll be ready to go, and we'll be excited to play here in Worthen.
Couple of questions about that Bowling Green game coming up on Saturday. For Nyla Hampton, she's a Bowling Green transfer, obviously still has some ties to that team. Has she mentioned that game as one she circled on her calendar, or even if not, just what do you think? What do you think she's going to be able to contribute against that against that former team of hers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be probably some moments where it won't be easy for her, because she does have lifelong friends left on that basketball team. It's a new coaching staff, so I don't know that she's got a ton of ties to them. But she was really close with Amy Velasco and, some of those kids. So there'll be some of that emotionally that'll be tough on her. And I'm sure, like any player, she wants to play well in that game. But the thing with Nyla, she's such a mature kid, such a good person. She wants to play well every night. She is all about winning, and she's going to do what it takes. And when that ball goes up, she's going to compete. So she hasn't and doesn't really talk in those kind of situations. She just wants to know what she has to do to help us win, and she's been a beauty to coach, that's for sure.
Yeah, you guys played Bowling Green 3 times last season. The first one was in this building. Got a big win at the beginning of conference play, and then tough loss on the road in overtime, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, the season end, the MAC season ender in Cleveland in that semifinal. Does that make this sort of a revenge game for you? Is it personal, or is it just business?
Nah, it's I don't think it ever really gets personal. There's so many factors that go in from year to year. You got a new coaching staff. Some of the players are still there. Some of them are gone. Every year it's just a little bit different. But there is a healthy rivalry when Ball State and Bowling Green plays, and it's a credit to both programs, right? Through those Kurt Miller days back before I got here, Bowling Green was really, really good. They took a little bit of a dip, at the beginning of my time, and now here over the last 3 or 4 years, they've been really good again. So those are the fun ones. Those are the ones you want to play in. And if you're a competitor, those are the ones that you strive to be great in.
Then looking forward a little bit to the Toledo game. Obviously, Toledo and you guys, the two, I would say, current powerhouses of the MAC, just with your current form. And what do you think about that opportunity against Toledo to kind of, I guess, solidify yourselves as the top dogs in the conference, and then just the chance to showcase yourselves on national TV?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I'd be fooling everybody if I said, that one wasn't somewhere on the horizon. I think both programs know that they're either going to have to go through us or we're going to have to go through them. Now Kent State's got something to say about that. They're good. I was watching them the other day on film, but it's the other awesome part of it is CBS picked it up and we moved it to Sunday. It's going to be prime time. We need this community and this student body to show out on TV so everybody in the country can see what MAC basketball is about in Muncie, Indiana. And so we're excited, but we got to get there first. And so we got to keep our concentration levels on 1-0 today.
Yeah. And then I guess just kind of summarize things and wrap things up. End goals for the season. You guys fell short in the MAC tournament last year. I know, talking to you in that press conference afterwards, there was some definite frustration knowing you could have gotten to the finish line. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing some of the decorations you got in the office. You got this lovely trophy case over here, but a lot of these dates aren't too recent. Is that the goal, to add something to that shelf?
We've got an NCAA tournament team. We've got to finish it. We've got to make sure that we get it there. And there's a lot of those every year that are disappointed and don't get to play in it. So I think we know we're good enough. We just have to finish the deal. The trophy cases and all that kind of stuff are byproducts. But we know what we've got. We've got to continue to fall in love with the day-to-day grind and the process. And even through adversity, we've got to be okay with understanding it's going to make us better. But no question, we've got a good basketball team. We just have to show it when it counts. And if we can take care of business, it doesn't necessarily have to just be in the tournament. I think there's a couple ways to playing in that NCAA tournament, and we're definitely good enough to be in it.
Yeah, well, I certainly agree with that statement. I think you guys run a great program, and the growth that I've seen from my freshman year when I got here to what you guys are putting out on the court now is just outstanding. It's just so much fun to watch, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. We're gonna take a break. When we get back, we'll have Sam back in the studio, and we'll talk the upcoming schedule and some things to look for here in the next week of Ball State basketball. But thanks again, Coach.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you.
Yep, we're gonna take a break here on the Cards Court, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. We'll be right back.
To catch the best stories in Ball State sports every month, tune in to the award-winning show, SportsLink Stories, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. Victory Honda of Muncie is proud to support the creative storytellers of Ball State SportsLink.
Welcome back to the Cards Court here on the SL Digital Radio Network. Another big thank you to Coach Brady Sallee for joining us this afternoon. It was great to have him on, and now we're back here in the studio with my co-host here, Sam Neiger, and it's time as we wrap things up here on the Cards Court to get to PBP's keys, and that's 3 keys for these 2 teams to unlock if they're going to have some success this week in their upcoming schedule. And Sam, for the men's basketball team to start things off, 4 straight games where they've been held to 30 or less points in the first half. They've lost all 4 of those games. They got to get hot early.
Yeah, this is a team that is going to have lightning quick starts in its next 2 matchups. They face Akron and Toledo. That's the top 2 teams in the Mid-American Conference. So if Ball State can't score early, they're going to get buried in those 2 games, and it's going to be a tough hill to climb out of. We saw that they struggled to score early against Central Michigan. You can't have that. You have to ride the hot hand early, whether that's Davion Bailey, who's caught fire lately, or your tried and true Bashir Jihad. This team has the ability to score. It's just whether or not they can hit it from the jump.
Well, and I think part of that is spreading out the scoring as well as relying on one player. And we talked about depth issues, and I think that's part of the issues that they've been having. They've had to rely on individual performances a little too much, and maybe they need some team offense here in these next couple of games. But on the women's side, first home game during the academic schedule since prior to Thanksgiving. They're going to have some more fans in the arena, some students back, and you got to establish the fortress that is Worthen Arena.
You just have to invite the pressure of knowing that every time you step out on the floor at Worthen Arena, there's going to be fans, there's going to be a crowd, and there's going to be a target on your back, like I said earlier in the show. But this is a team with such talent, with such vision. They've got a goal that they want to win the MAC tournament. They want to have an NCAA tournament berth. It's all about taking care of business at home. This is a team that absolutely has the talent to be able to do that, and I think they're ready for the season of action in Worthen Arena.
Yeah, I completely agree. And going off of that for this third key, it applies to both teams, but you have to be able to feed off that crowd and generate some momentum. There's going to be fans behind you, and I've seen some of these mid-major games where they're playing in empty arenas. The Ball State, Worthen Arena might not be full, but there's going to be enough in there to completely affect the game if the Cardinals can get their fans behind them and making some noise.
And this is as much of a key for Ball State fans as it is for the players. You got to show up. You got to be loud. You got to get excited for action back in Worthen Arena. It's here. It's one of the best times of year. So if the fans can kind of feed into these players, get them going, it's going to be another exciting season of action inside Worthen Arena.
Yeah, well, Christmas may have just ended, but we have another most wonderful time of year.
Absolutely.
And that's
Of course we do. It doesn't get much better than that.
Well, let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for these two sides. It all kicks off Tuesday night, men's basketball taking on Akron here at Worthen Arena. That game can be streamed on SL Digital Radio with AJ Switek and Max Gilly on the call. The following night, the Ball State women's basketball team takes on Buffalo right here at Worthen Arena. That game can be caught on SL Digital Radio with Griffin, Leonard, myself, and Devin Pote on the call for that one on the radio. And then Saturday, little doubleheader. Only one of the teams is away, unfortunately. Ball State women's basketball is at home. That game's at 1 p.m. Greek night against Bowling Green, the team that knocked us out of the MAC tournament back in March. That game can be also streamed, imagine that, on SL Digital Radio with Isaiah Rosner and Lucas Thatcher on the call. And then to cap things off, as we mentioned a minute ago, Ball State men's basketball travels to Toledo, where they've got a matchup against the Rockets. And that is what awaits us in this upcoming week. That'll do it for this episode of the Cards Court. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to tune in next week when we talk more Ball State basketball and we see how things are going. But until then, for Sam Neiger and Coach Brady Sallee, I'm Griffin Leonard. Thank you for watching the Cards Court. The court is adjourned.
The Cards Court is hosted and produced by Griffin Leonard. Be sure to follow BSU SportsLink across social media for the best stories in Ball State sports. The Cards Court has been a production of Ball State SportsLink.